I learned what conditional love felt like on a Tuesday afternoon in March, sitting in Dr. Harrison's office while my 5-year-old son traced invisible patterns on my palm with his small finger. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, sterile and indifferent, as the cardiologist explained that Owen needed surgery within 3 months. Not someday, not eventually. 3 months. The ventricular septal defect has progressed, Dr. Harrison said, his hands folded on the desk between us. We need to repair it before it causes irreversible damage to his heart. Owen looked up at me with those wide hazel eyes, completely trusting, completely unaware that his mother's world had just fractured into 1,000 impossible pieces. I smoothed his dark hair and forced my voice to stay steady. "What are we looking at?" I asked. "In terms of cost?" The number landed like a physical blow. $25,000. After insurance. The words seemed to echo in the small office, bouncing off the diplomas on the wall and the cheerful posters about heart health. $25,000 I did not have. I worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm in Portland, Oregon. The salary was decent, the benefits adequate, but single motherhood meant stretching every dollar until it screamed. Owen's father had vanished when I was 6 months pregnant, leaving nothing behind but a forwarding address that bounced back and a phone number that went straight to voicemail. I had learned to build a life from scratch, to find joy in small victories and budget for everything twice. But $25,000 might as well have been $25 million. "We can discuss payment plans," Dr. Harrison said gently, sensing my panic. "And there are sometimes grants available for families in financial need." I nodded mechanically, taking the folder he offered, my mind already spinning through impossible calculations. I had $8,000 in savings, money I had scraped together over 4 years by saying no to vacations and yes to every freelance project that came my way. I could maybe borrow another $5 from my retirement account, though the penalties would hurt. That left $12,000 standing between my son and the surgery that would save his life. Owen tugged on my sleeve. "Mama, can we get ice cream?" "Sure, baby," I said, gathering our things. "Whatever you want." We stopped at the little shop on Division Street, where they knew Owen by name, where they always gave him extra sprinkles without charging. He sat across from me in the booth, chocolate already smeared across his cheek, chattering about his kindergarten class and the frog they were raising from a tadpole. He had no idea that his heart was failing. He had no idea that I was drowning. I called my parents that evening after Owen fell asleep, his small body curled around his stuffed elephant, breathing steady and even. My father answered on the 3rd ring. "Amelia," he said, his voice carrying that particular tone of forced patience he reserved for me. "This is unexpected." I swallowed the familiar sting. My parents lived in Lake Oswego, just 30 minutes away, but the distance between us felt oceanic. They had never approved of my choices. Not the pregnancy, not keeping the baby, not raising him alone in a modest apartment when I could have, in their words, done something sensible. "Dad, I need to talk to you and Mom. It's important." "Is this about money again?" The words hit harder because they were partially true. I had asked them for help before. When Owen was born and I was recovering from an emergency cesarean section, unable to work for 6 weeks. When my car died and I needed transportation to get him to daycare and myself to work. Each time they had helped, but their generosity came wrapped in judgment and long speeches about responsibility. "Owen needs surgery," I said quietly. "A serious one. His heart." The silence stretched long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. "How serious?" My mother's voice joined the conversation, sharp with something I wanted to believe was concern. I explained everything Dr. Harrison had told me, the medical terminology stumbling off my tongue, my voice cracking when I got to the timeline. 3 months. The surgery could not wait longer than 3 months. "And how much?" my father asked. $25,000. After insurance. Another silence. This one heavier, suffocating. That's quite a sum, my father said finally. What about the father? You know there is no father in the picture, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. There hasn't been since before Owen was born. Well, whose fault is that? The cruelty was so casual it took my breath away. I pressed my palm against my mouth, willing myself not to scream, not to cry, not to give them the satisfaction of breaking me. I'm not asking you to cover everything, I managed. Just help me, please. He's your grandson. We'll need to think about it, my mother said. This is not a small request, Amelia. We have our own financial obligations. He's 5 years old, I whispered. He needs this surgery to live. We'll call you back, my father said, and the line went dead. I sat in the dark living room for a long time after that, listening to the sounds of the city outside my window, feeling the weight of my failure pressing down on every side. This was my fault. All of it. I had chosen poorly, loved unwisely, and now my son would pay the price for my mistakes. They did not call back that night, or the next day, or the day after that. I threw myself into research, filling every spare moment with grant applications and fundraising ideas. I started a crowdfunding campaign with a photo of Owen grinning in his superhero cape, the one he wore constantly despite the worn fabric and faded colors. I wrote the description 3 times before I could get through it without crying. The donations trickled in slowly. $50 here, $20 there. Friends from work contributed what they could. My boss quietly added $1,000 and told me to take all the time I needed. But the numbers crawled forward with agonizing slowness, while the deadline raced toward us like a freight train. Owen started asking why we kept going to the hospital. He hated the blood draws, the endless tests, the way the nurses spoke to him in voices too cheerful to be genuine. I tried to explain in terms a 5-year-old could understand. But how do you tell your child that his heart is broken without breaking his spirit? Will it hurt? He asked one night, his small hand finding mine in the darkness. You'll be asleep, I promised. And when you wake up, you'll feel so much better. You'll be able to run and play without getting tired. Will you be there? Every single second, I said. I'm not going anywhere. He fell asleep holding my hand, and I stayed there on the edge of his bed, watching his chest rise and fall, memorizing every detail of his face in case the worst happened, in case I failed him. My sister called on a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after my conversation with our parents. Victoria was 3 years younger than me, perpetually golden, perpetually favored. She worked in event planning, dating a man named Gregory, who came from the kind of old money that whispered rather than shouted. I answered the phone while stirring pasta sauce with one hand and checking Owen's homework with the other. Amelia! Victoria's voice bubbled with excitement. I have the most amazing news. I pinned the phone between my shoulder and ear, reaching to turn down the heat on the stove. What's going on? Gregory proposed. We're engaged. Can you believe it? Something twisted in my chest, sharp and bitter. I forced enthusiasm into my voice. That's wonderful, Vic. Congratulations. We're thinking a summer wedding. June, probably. Something elegant but not too stuffy. And the honeymoon. We've been looking at Italy. 3 weeks touring from Rome to Venice to the Amalfi Coast. Doesn't that sound incredible? 3 weeks in Italy. I thought about my $8,000 in savings, the number that had barely moved despite working myself to exhaustion. I thought about Owen's surgery, the deadline approaching like a death sentence. Sounds expensive, I said carefully. Oh, it will be. Around $50,000 for the whole trip, but Mom and Dad already said they'd cover it as a wedding gift. Isn't that generous? The pasta sauce boiled over, hissing against the burner. I stared at the red liquid spreading across the stove, unable to move, unable to process what I had just heard. Amelia, are you there? They're giving you $50,000, I said slowly. Each word felt like swallowing glass. Well, yes. For the honeymoon. They want us to have something really special to start our marriage. Isn't that sweet? I turned off the stove. Owen looked up from his workbook, sensing something wrong in the sudden stillness. Victoria, I said quietly, did they tell you about Owen? What about Owen? He needs heart surgery, $25,000 worth. I asked them for help 2 weeks ago. The silence on the other end was different now. Uncomfortable. Weighted. I'm sure they have their reasons, Victoria said finally, her voice losing some of its sparkle. Maybe they just need more time to figure out their finances. They have $50,000 to send you to Italy, I said, but not 25 to save their grandson's life. That's not fair, Amelia. My wedding is important too. You can't expect them to choose between us. I can when one situation is about a child's survival. Victoria sighed, the sound carrying years of unspoken resentment and hierarchy. You always do this. You always make everything about you and your struggles. Did you ever think that maybe they're tired of bailing you out? That maybe you need to take responsibility for your own choices? My choice? I felt something cold and hard settling in my chest. My choice was to keep my son alive when his father abandoned us. What exactly should I have done differently? I don't know, Amelia, but I can't be your therapist right now. I have a wedding to plan. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the burnt smell of tomato sauce filling the air, and felt the last fragile thread of hope snap clean through. Owen appeared at my elbow, his face creased with worry. Mama? Are you sad? I knelt down and pulled him close, breathing in the little boy smell of him, the shampoo and playground dirt, and something indefinably sweet that was purely his own. No, baby, I lied. I'm just tired. Is it because of my heart? Your heart is perfect, I said fiercely. Don't you ever think otherwise. He hugged me tight, his small arms strong despite everything, and I held him like he was the only solid thing left in a world that had just revealed itself as fundamentally, irrevocably broken. That night, after Owen went to bed, I called my parents one more time. My father answered, his voice distracted. Did you think about what I asked? I said without preamble. Amelia, we've discussed this. We simply don't have that kind of liquid capital available right now. But you have $50,000 for Victoria's honeymoon. The pause told me everything. That's different, he said finally. How? Explain to me how a vacation is more important than your grandson's life. Your sister's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. My mother's voice cut in, cold and precise. We've been planning for this, setting aside funds. It's not the same as an emergency that just appeared. Owen's heart condition didn't just appear, I said, my voice shaking. It's been developing. The doctors have been monitoring it. This is the critical point where he needs intervention. This is his once-in-a-lifetime event. Except if he doesn't get it, there won't be a lifetime. Don't be dramatic, my father said sharply. I'm sure you can work out a payment plan with the hospital. They do that sort of thing. I've already talked to them. The payment plan still requires a significant down payment that I don't have. I'm trying everything. I have a fundraiser going. I've applied for grants. I'm working extra hours. But I'm still short, and time is running out. Then perhaps you should have thought about this before deciding to raise a child alone, my mother said. These are the consequences of your choices, Amelia. We can't be expected to fix every problem you create for yourself. The words hung in the air between us, poisonous and final. I had known my parents were disappointed in me. I had felt their judgment in every stilted conversation, every obligation visit where they held Owen at arm's length like he might contaminate them with the stain of my poor decisions. But I had never fully grasped until this moment how little I meant to them, how little my son meant to them. I understand, I said quietly. I won't ask again. Don't be like that, my father said, irritation creeping into his tone. We're not saying we won't help at all. Perhaps after the wedding, once things settle down, we can revisit this." "Owen's surgery is in 10 weeks, I said. "Victoria's wedding is in 4 months. The math doesn't work." "Well, we'll do what we can," my mother said, her voice already dismissive, already moving on to more important things. "We have to go. We're meeting Victoria and Gregory for dinner to discuss venue options." They hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in the silence of my living room, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the empty static. Something fundamental had shifted inside me. The desperate hope I had been clinging to, the belief that family would come through when it truly mattered, crumbled into dust. I was alone. Owen was alone. We had always been alone, but I had pretended otherwise. That pretense died that night. The next morning, I liquidated my retirement account, accepting the penalties and taxes that came with it. I sold my car and bought a cheaper used one, pocketing the difference. I put my grandmother's ring, the only piece of jewelry I owned worth anything, on consignment. I picked up 2 more freelance clients, working until 2 in the morning after Owen went to bed, functioning on 4 hours of sleep and pure desperation. The crowdfunding campaign grew slowly but steadily. Strangers contributed. People I had not spoken to in years found the link and donated what they could. My small community rallied in ways my family never had. By the beginning of May, 6 weeks after that first appointment with Dr. Harrison, I had scraped together $23,000. Close, so close, but not enough. I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Saturday morning, staring at the numbers for the 100th time, when my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. It was a photo of her and Gregory on a beach, sunset painted gold and pink behind them. The caption read, "Venue hunting in Cannon Beach. Found the perfect spot for the ceremony." I stared at the image of my sister's happiness, her completely uncomplicated joy, and felt something dark and hard take root in my chest. It was not fair. None of this was fair, but fairness was a concept for people who could afford it, and I had learned I was not one of them. My boss found me crying in the bathroom at work on Monday. Helen was 15 years older than me, sharp-eyed and perpetually skeptical, but she had always been kind in her own gruff way. "What's the total shortfall?" she asked bluntly, handing me paper towels. 2,000, I admitted. "I'm 2,000 short." She was quiet for a moment, then pulled out her phone. "I'm going to send an email to the entire company. No pressure on anyone, but let's see what we can do. Helen, you already contributed. I can't ask for more. You're not asking. I'm offering." She paused at the door. "That kid of yours is a fighter, Amelia. He gets that from you. Don't you dare give up now." By Wednesday, the company had raised the final $2,000. I cried in my car for 20 minutes when I saw the final total. $25,143. Enough. Finally, impossibly, enough. Owen's surgery was scheduled for May 15th. The night before, I packed his favorite stuffed elephant and a new book about dinosaurs. He was nervous but trying to be brave, asking questions about what the hospital would be like, whether he could have popsicles after, if the doctors were nice. "The doctors are very nice," I promised. "And yes, all the popsicles you want. Will Grandma and Grandpa come visit?" he asked quietly. The question pierced something deep. I had not told Owen about my conversations with my parents, had not burdened him with the knowledge of their rejection. But children sense things. They know when they are less than, when they are not enough. "They're very busy with Aunt Victoria's wedding planning," I said carefully. "But I'll be there. I promise." He nodded, accepting this with the resilience children possess, the ability to adapt to disappointment because they do not yet know how much it should hurt. I held him as he fell asleep that night, whispering promises into his hair. Promises I intended to keep. Promises that went beyond the surgery and recovery. I would build a life for us that did not include people who measured love in dollar signs and conditions. I would teach him that family was what you made, not what you were born into. I would survive this. We both would. And I would remember exactly who stood beside us when it mattered most. The surgery lasted 6 hours. I spent every minute in the waiting room, pacing circles into the industrial carpet, drinking coffee that tasted like cardboard, watching the clock drag itself forward second by agonizing second. Helen sat with me for the first 3 hours before her own family obligations called her away. A nurse I had never met brought me a sandwich I could not eat. The chaplain stopped by twice, offering prayers I could not hear over the roar of fear in my head. When Dr. Harrison finally appeared, still in his surgical scrubs, I knew from his face that Owen had survived. "The repair went perfectly," he said, and I collapsed into the nearest chair, all the strength draining from my legs at once. "He came through beautifully. Strong kid you've got there." They let me see him 2 hours later. Owen looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped and hummed. His eyes were closed, his face pale, but his chest rose and fell with steady, even breaths. I took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV, and pressed my lips to his knuckles. "You did it, baby," I whispered. "You're going to be okay." I called my parents from the hospital corridor while Owen slept, still riding the wave of relief and exhaustion. My mother answered. "The surgery was successful," I said. "He's in recovery. They expect a full recovery." "That's good news," my mother said, her voice flat. "We're glad to hear it. I thought you'd want to know, in case you wanted to visit." "Oh, well, this week is quite busy. Victoria's dress fitting is tomorrow, and we have the caterer meeting on Thursday, perhaps next week." Something in me crystallized then. Not anger, not even disappointment, just clarity. Cold, hard clarity. "Don't bother," I said quietly. "I'll handle this on my own, like I've handled everything else." "Amelia, there's no need to be petty." I hung up before she could say anything else. Owen spent 4 days in the hospital. I took leave from work, sleeping in the chair beside his bed, helping him with the breathing exercises, distracting him from the discomfort with stories and games. Friends from work sent balloons and toys. His kindergarten class made him cards covered in crayon drawings of hearts. My parents sent nothing. Victoria sent a brief text. "So glad Owen is okay. Super busy with wedding stuff, but thinking of you both." I did not respond. By the time we went home, Owen was already looking better. Color had returned to his cheeks. He could walk without getting winded. Dr. Harrison was optimistic about his long-term prognosis. The surgery had been a complete success. I planned a small celebration party for 2 weeks after his release, once he was stronger and clearance from the doctors. Nothing elaborate. Just a gathering at our apartment with the people who had been there when it mattered. Helen and a few co-workers. Owen's kindergarten teacher. The neighbors who had contributed to the fundraiser. The nurse from Dr. Harrison's office who had held my hand while I cried. I sent invitations to my parents and Victoria 3 weeks in advance. A simple text with the date, time, and address they already knew. "Owen's recovery celebration. Would love for you to be there." My mother responded 2 days later. "We'll try to make it. Victoria's wedding is coming up fast and things are hectic." Victoria never responded at all. The party was on a Saturday afternoon in early June. I decorated our small living room with streamers and balloons. I made Owen's favorite foods, chicken fingers and fruit salad and chocolate cupcakes with rainbow sprinkles. I set out photos from the hospital, the ones where Owen was grinning despite the tubes, giving thumbs up to the camera. Evidence of survival, evidence of strength. People started arriving at 2. Helen brought a huge stuffed dinosaur that made Owen shriek with delight. His teacher brought books. The neighbors brought more food than we could possibly eat. Everyone hugged Owen carefully, mindful of his healing chest, telling him how brave he was, how proud they were of him. 3 o'clock came and went. No parents. No Victoria. 4 o'clock. Owen kept looking at the door, his face falling a little more each time it opened to reveal someone who was not his grandparents. "Are they coming, Mama?" he asked finally, his voice small. "I don't know, baby," I said, because I would not lie to him. Not about this. "Maybe they forgot?" "Maybe," I agreed, though we both knew better. At 5, when the party was winding down and Owen was showing signs of fatigue, my phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Not an apology, not an explanation. Just a photo of her and Gregory at what looked like a wine tasting, both of them laughing, sun-kissed and carefree. The caption read, "Pre-wedding celebration with my love." I stared at the photo for a long time, at my sister's radiant smile, at the expensive wine in her hand, at the complete absence of any acknowledgement that she had just missed her nephew's celebration. The nephew who had nearly died. The nephew whose life had been saved by the generosity of strangers while his own family planned parties in Italy. "Mama?" Owen's voice pulled me back. "Can we have cake now?" "Absolutely," I said, putting my phone away. "Let's have cake." We sang happy birthday, even though it was not his birthday, because celebrations did not need reasons beyond survival. Owen blew out the candles and made a wish. Everyone cheered. Helen caught my eye across the room and gave me a small, knowing nod. These were my people. This was my family. The ones who showed up. After everyone left and Owen was asleep, exhausted but happy, I sat in my living room surrounded by the remnants of the party. Deflating balloons, half-eaten cake, cards and small gifts from people who owed us nothing but gave us everything. I thought about my parents in their big house in Lake Oswego, probably enjoying their Saturday evening with wine and good food and complete peace of mind. I thought about Victoria, preparing for a wedding funded by the same people who could not find $25,000 to save their grandson's life. I thought about the future, about what I owed them, about what they would inevitably expect from me when their lives became less golden, less perfect, less worthy of $50,000 gifts. And I decided, sitting there in the quiet darkness, that I owed them nothing. Less than nothing. They had made their choice. Now I would make mine. The next day, I blocked my parents' number. I blocked Victoria's number. I blocked them on every social media platform. I deleted every photo of them from my phone except the ones that included Owen, and even those I archived where I would not have to see them. I was done. We were done. Life settled into a new rhythm over the following months. Owen grew stronger every day, his energy returning in bursts that left me breathless with gratitude. He started first grade in September, running onto the playground without the fatigue that had plagued him before. Dr. Harrison's checkups showed perfect healing. The fundraising debt was manageable, spread across small monthly payments to various credit cards and generous friends who refused interest. I threw myself into work, earning a promotion in August that came with a salary increase that finally gave us breathing room. Helen became more than a boss. She became a friend, the kind who showed up with wine on bad days and babysat Owen when I needed an evening to myself. We built traditions, Owen and I. Friday movie nights, Sunday morning pancakes, monthly trips to the coast, where he could run on the beach and collect shells. I did not miss my family. I did not miss the constant weight of their judgment, the exhausting performance of gratitude for scraps of affection. Owen asked about them sometimes in the early weeks, but children are adaptable. He learned that family looked like Helen bringing pizza on tired evenings, like his teacher staying late to help with a difficult project, like the neighbor who taught him card tricks and never forgot his birthday. My parents tried to reach out exactly twice. Once in July, a voicemail from my mother asking if I was still upset and suggesting we move past this unpleasantness. Once in September, my father leaving a terse message saying they expected me to behave like an adult, and attend Victoria's wedding in October. I deleted both messages without responding. Victoria's wedding came and went. I saw photos on social media from mutual acquaintances who apparently still followed her. The ceremony at Cannon Beach looked beautiful. The reception looked expensive. Everyone looked happy. I felt nothing. October became November. November became December. Owen and I decorated our small apartment for the holidays, hanging lights and making paper snowflakes. Helen invited us to her family's Christmas dinner. We belonged somewhere, just not with the people who shared our blood. The call came on a Tuesday evening in mid-March, almost exactly 1 year after Owen's diagnosis. I was helping him with homework when my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Amelia? Victoria's voice was different, smaller, shaky. How did you get this number? I asked, my voice flat. I called your work. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Gregory left me. The words came out in a rush, desperate and raw. He filed for divorce. I don't know what to do. I should have felt satisfaction. Some dark part of me had imagined this moment, had wanted my sister to feel even a fraction of the helplessness I had felt begging for help while my son's life hung in the balance. But all I felt was tired. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. But I'm not sure why you're calling me. Because you're my sister. Because I need help. I need somewhere to stay while I figure things out. I can't afford the apartment on my own, and Mom and Dad are being impossible about everything. Impossible how? They're upset about the divorce. They're saying I should have tried harder, that I'm throwing away a good man. They won't help me with rent or anything. They said I made my bed, and now I have to lie in it. She laughed, the sound broken and bitter. Funny, right? After everything they gave us for the wedding, for the honeymoon, now they won't even help with first and last month's rent. That does sound familiar, I said quietly. Amelia, please. I know we haven't been close. I know I should have been there for Owen. But I need help. Can I stay with you? Just for a few weeks until I get back on my feet? The audacity was breathtaking, almost impressive in its complete lack of self-awareness. No, I said simply. What? No. You cannot stay with me. I won't help you. But I'm your sister. Are you? I kept my voice level, calm. Owen looked up from his homework, sensing the shift in atmosphere. I gave him a reassuring smile. Because sisters show up. Sisters care when their nephew nearly dies. Sisters don't skip celebration parties because they're too busy drinking wine and planning European vacations. That's not fair. You don't understand what I was going through. The wedding stress was... I don't care, I interrupted. I truly, genuinely do not care what you were going through. Do you know what I was going through? I was watching my son fight for his life, while trying to scrape together money that our parents had but refused to share. I was working 3 jobs and sleeping 4 hours a night and liquidating my entire future because the people who were supposed to love us chose your happiness over his survival. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And you know what the worst part is? You weren't even sorry. You never apologized. You never acknowledged what you did. You just kept posting your perfect life on social media while my son recovered from open-heart surgery without a single member of his extended family bothering to visit. Victoria was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have been there. You're right. But I'm asking now. I'm asking for help now. And I'm saying no, the same way you said no when I needed you. Please, Amelia, I have nowhere else to go. Then I suggest you figure it out. Apply for assistance, ask friends, find a cheaper apartment, get a roommate. Do all the things I did when I was desperate and alone. You'll survive. I did. I can't believe you're being this cruel. The word struck something in me. Cruel. As if boundaries were cruelty. As if refusing to light myself on fire to keep someone else warm was some kind of moral failing. I'm not being cruel, I said. I'm being fair. I'm giving you exactly what you gave me. Nothing. What about Mom and Dad? What am I supposed to tell them? Tell them whatever you want. I blocked them months ago. Their opinion means nothing to me anymore. You can't just cut off your whole family. Watch me, I said, and hung up. My hands were shaking. Owen had abandoned his homework, watching me with wide eyes. Who was that, Mama? No one important, I said, and it was not even a lie. Victoria called back immediately. I declined the call. She called again. Declined. She sent texts that I deleted without reading. She left voicemails I erased. The desperation in her attempts might have moved me once, back when I still believed family meant something beyond shared genetics. But that woman was gone, burned away in hospital waiting rooms and sleepless nights, and the cold clarity of abandonment. The next assault came from my mother 2 days later. She must have gotten my new number from the same source Victoria had used. Her voicemail was clipped and furious. Amelia, this is childish. Your sister needs help and you're being vindictive. I expect you to call me back immediately and work this out. Family helps family. That's what we do. I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentimentality, but as evidence. Proof of the hypocrisy. The complete lack of self-awareness. Family helps family, she said, as if she had not refused to help when it actually mattered. As if $25,000 for a child's surgery was somehow less worthy than $50,000 for a vacation. My father called next, his voicemail even shorter. Your mother and I are very disappointed in your behavior. Call us back and apologize to your sister. I deleted that one. I did not need to save it. I had the message memorized already. They tried for a week. Calls, texts, voicemails. Each one angrier than the last. Each one demanding I fall in line, play my role, be the good daughter who sacrificed herself on the altar of family loyalty. They did not understand that I had already been sacrificed. That I had died in that hospital waiting room and been reborn into someone who owed them nothing. On the 8th day, my mother showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find her standing there in her expensive coat, her face tight with barely controlled anger. Behind her, through the parking lot, I could see my father waiting in their car. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the apartment before I could respond. Owen was at school. The apartment was quiet, tidy, filled with signs of the life I had built without them. Photos of Owen and me at the coast, his artwork on the refrigerator, Helen's spare umbrella by the door. You shouldn't be here, I said, leaving the door open. An invitation for her to leave. Your sister is suffering, my mother said, turning to face me. She's going through a divorce. She needs family support. Where was family support when Owen needed surgery? I asked quietly. Oh, for God's sake, are you still harping on that? We explained our financial situation. We had commitments. You had $50,000 for Victoria's honeymoon. That was different. That was planned. That was a once-in-a-lifetime event. And Owen's life wasn't? My mother's face flushed. You're twisting things. We offered to help after the wedding. You're the one who cut us off. You offered to help after the surgery was already done. After I had sold everything I owned and begged strangers for money. After your grandson went through open-heart surgery without a single visit from his grandparents. We were busy with the wedding. And now you're busy being disappointed in me. Funny how you're never too busy to judge, but always too busy to help. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Nothing about watching my son nearly die while you planned parties was fair. Nothing about begging for help and being told I should have made better choices was fair. Nothing about my sister skipping Owen's celebration because she was too busy tasting wine was fair. So don't talk to me about fairness. My mother drew herself up, her eyes cold. You're being selfish. Victoria needs a place to stay. Then let her stay with you. We don't have the room. The guest bedroom is being renovated. The laugh that escaped me was harsh, ugly. You don't have room for Victoria, but you expected me to find $25,000 for Owen's surgery? You have a 4-bedroom house and you're renovating the guest room, but your daughter going through a divorce has nowhere to go? And somehow I'm the selfish one? Watch your tone, young lady. I'm 32 years old. I'm not your young lady. I'm not your anything. You made that very clear when you chose Victoria's happiness over Owen's life. We did no such thing. You did exactly that. And now you want me to reward your cruelty by helping Victoria. You want me to teach Owen that family means nothing, that the people who abandoned him deserve his mother's time and energy and resources. What kind of lesson is that? My mother's expression shifted then, from anger to something calculating. If you don't help your sister, we'll cut you out, completely. No inheritance, no family gatherings, no relationship with us at all. The threat hung in the air between us. Once, it might have worked. Once, I might have crumbled under the weight of that rejection. But I had already been cut out. I had already lost them. They just had not realized it yet. Deal, I said simply. She blinked, thrown off balance. What? I said deal. Cut me out. I'll save you the trouble. I don't want your inheritance. I don't want your family gatherings. I don't want a relationship with you at all. You can leave now. Amelia, get out. I walked to the open door, holding it wide. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. Go tell Victoria I said no. Go tell Dad I'm a terrible daughter. Go tell everyone in your social circle how awful I am. I don't care. You have no power over me anymore. My mother stared at me for a long moment, her face cycling through shock and fury, and something that might have been hurt if I cared enough to look closely. Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. You'll regret this, she said from the doorway. The only thing I regret, I said quietly, is not doing this sooner. I closed the door in her face and turned the deadbolt. Through the window, I watched her return to the car. Watched my father's face as she undoubtedly told him what had happened. I watched them drive away, out of my parking lot, out of my life. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from relief, from the lightness of a burden finally released. I texted Helen. I just told my mother to get out of my life. Want to come over tonight? I'll order Thai food. Her response came in seconds. Hell yes. Be there at 7. Bring wine. When Owen came home from school that afternoon, chattering about his day, I held him close and breathed in the scent of him. Grape juice and playground dust, and that indefinable sweetness that was purely his own. I love you, I whispered into his hair. Love you too, Mama, he said, squirming away to show me a drawing he had made. Look, it's us at the beach. Us, not them, not grandparents who chose favorites and conditions, just us. It was enough. We were enough. The aftermath unfolded over the following weeks, with a predictability that would have been funny if it were not so pathetic. Victoria ramped up her campaign, somehow obtaining my email address, and sending long, rambling messages about how hurt she was, how betrayed she felt, how I was punishing her for mistakes that were not entirely her fault. Each email was a masterpiece of deflection, managing to cast herself as the victim while never quite acknowledging what she had actually done. I set up a filter that sent them directly to trash. My parents tried a different tactic. They reached out to Helen at work, calling the main office line and asking to speak with her about their daughter. Helen, who knew everything, who had been there for every moment of the nightmare they had created, listened patiently to my mother's complaints about my ungrateful attitude and stubborn pride. Then she said, and I only know this because she told me later with immense satisfaction, I was there when Amelia begged for help to save her son's life. I was there when she sold everything she owned. I was there for the surgery while you were planning a wedding. So with all due respect, I'm going to hang up now. I bought her an expensive bottle of scotch to say thank you. The extended family heard about the rift, of course. In early April, I started receiving calls and messages from aunts and cousins I barely knew, people who had not bothered to contribute to Owen's fundraiser, but suddenly had opinions about family loyalty and forgiveness. I ignored most of them. To the few I did respond to, I simply forwarded the crowdfunding campaign from the previous year. If you're concerned about family, I wrote, you can donate to help pay off the medical debt we're still carrying. Otherwise, I'm not interested in your input. None of them donated. All of them stopped calling. Owen's 7th birthday came in May. We had a party at a trampoline park with his friends from school. Helen came, and his teacher, and several neighbors. We ate pizza and cake. Owen was flushed and happy, bouncing with energy that would have been impossible before the surgery. I took 100 photos, documenting his joy, his health, his life. My parents did not call, did not send a card, did not acknowledge his birthday at all. Did Grandma and Grandpa forget? Owen asked that evening, his voice carefully neutral in the way children learn when they are trying not to show they are hurt. I think they're just busy, I said, which was technically not a lie. That's okay, he said, though his eyes were too bright. I like our parties better anyway. He was learning the lesson I had hoped to spare him. That blood does not guarantee loyalty, that some people will fail you in ways that leave scars. But he was also learning the more important lesson, that you could build your own family. That love was a choice, not an obligation. That showing up mattered more than sharing DNA. In June, I got a letter from a lawyer. Not divorce papers or a lawsuit, nothing quite that dramatic. Just a formal letter on expensive letterhead, informing me that I had been removed from my parents' will. All assets would now pass to Victoria upon their death. They wanted me to know this, the letter explained in cold legal language, so I could plan accordingly. I read it twice, waiting for the hurt to come. It did not. I felt nothing beyond a mild curiosity about how much money they thought this threat would carry, as if I had been counting on an inheritance, as if I had been building my life around the expectation of their eventual generosity. I filed the letter away and forgot about it. Summer arrived. Owen thrived. We took a week-long trip to the coast in July, staying in a cheap motel and spending every day on the beach. Owen learned to boogie board. I read 3 novels cover to cover without interruption. We ate fish and chips and soft-serve ice cream. We built sandcastles and collected agates. We were happy. In late August, a year and a half after Owen's surgery, I received one final message from Victoria. It was different from the others. Shorter. Less desperate. Just a simple text. I hope you're happy with yourself. You've destroyed this family. I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about all the ways I could respond. I could list her failures. I could itemize her cruelty. I could explain, once again, exactly how she and our parents had destroyed the family long before I walked away from the wreckage. Instead, I wrote back, I am happy. Happier than I've ever been. I hope someday you understand why. Then I blocked her number for good. The truth was, I was happy. The weight I had been carrying for my entire life, the constant effort of trying to be good enough, trying to earn love that should have been freely given, was gone. I had chosen myself. I had chosen Owen. I had chosen the people who actually showed up, and in doing so, I had found something my family never gave me: peace. Owen started second grade in September. He made the soccer team, something that would have been impossible before the surgery. I stood on the sidelines with the other parents, cheering as he ran up and down the field, his face bright with effort and joy. Helen appeared beside me with coffee. "He looks great," she said, nodding toward Owen as he stole the ball and kicked it toward the goal. "He is great," I agreed. "Dr. Harrison says his heart function is perfect, like the defect never existed." "And how are you doing?" I considered the question. Really considered it. A year and a half ago, I had been drowning, desperate, alone in all the ways that mattered. Now I was standing in the sunshine, watching my healthy son play soccer, drinking coffee with a friend who had become family. "I'm doing really well," I said, and meant it. "Any word from the parents or sister?" "None. I blocked the last of their numbers in August. It's quiet now." Helen nodded approvingly. "Good. You don't need that poison in your life." She was right. That was what they had been. Poison. Slow-acting and insidious, making me doubt my worth, question my choices, feel grateful for scraps. Removing them from my life had been like removing a tumor. Painful in the moment, but necessary for survival. October brought news through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances. Victoria had apparently moved back in with our parents, after failing to find affordable housing on her own. The friend who told me this seemed to expect some reaction, some vindication or gloating. I felt neither. "I hope she figures things out," I said, and meant it. Not because I forgave her, but because her struggles no longer had anything to do with me. In November, my boss announced I was being promoted to senior designer, a position that came with a significant raise and better benefits. The team took me out to celebrate at a nice restaurant downtown. We ate good food and drank better wine and laughed until my face hurt. These people knew my story. They had been part of it. They had helped save my son's life while my blood family had chosen parties and trips. "Speech!" someone called out, and others picked up the chant. I stood, slightly tipsy and overwhelmingly grateful. "I just want to say thank you. For everything. For the past 2 years especially. You all showed me what family really means. It's not about who shares your DNA. It's about who shows up when everything is falling apart. You all showed up. You all saved us. And I will never ever forget that." Helen raised her glass. "To chosen family." "To chosen family," everyone echoed, and the words felt like a vow. December arrived with its usual chaos of holidays and obligations. I decorated our apartment with Owen, stringing lights and hanging stockings. We baked cookies and watched terrible Christmas movies. On Christmas morning, Owen woke up at 6 a.m. and dragged me out to the living room to see what Santa had brought. The gifts were modest but thoughtful. Books and art supplies and a new soccer ball. He loved all of it. His joy uncomplicated by any awareness of cost or status. We spent the afternoon at Helen's house with her extended family, eating too much food and playing board games. Owen fell asleep on the couch by 8, exhausted and content. I carried him out to the car, his head heavy on my shoulder, and felt the completeness of the moment. This was enough. This small, hard-won life was enough. The new year brought a surprise. In late January, almost 2 years after Owen's surgery, I received a call from my bank about an incoming wire transfer. Someone was attempting to send me money, $25,000. My first thought was that it was a scam. My second thought was that it was a mistake. My third thought was that it might actually be from my parents, some belated attempt at redemption or guilt. I was wrong on all counts. The money came from Gregory, Victoria's ex-husband. There was a note attached to the transfer. I heard about what happened with Owen's surgery. I didn't know at the time. Victoria never told me. This is 2 years too late, but I wanted to help with whatever debt remains. I'm sorry for my part in your family's failure. You deserved better. I sat in my car outside the bank, staring at the note on my phone screen, trying to process this unexpected grace. Gregory had not been the villain. He probably had not known the full story. And now, divorced and under no obligation, he had chosen to do what my own family had refused. I called him from the bank parking lot. He answered on the second ring. "Gregory," I said, "I received the transfer. You didn't have to do that." "I know," he said, "but when I found out what really happened, what they did to you and Owen, I couldn't let it stand. I know it doesn't fix anything, but maybe it helps. It helps tremendously. We're still carrying some of the debt. This will clear most of it." "Good." He paused. "For what it's worth, Amelia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry I was part of that family, even briefly." "You're not responsible for their choices," I said gently. "But thank you. This means more than you know." After we hung up, I sat in the car for a long time, watching people go about their daily business. Gregory had done in one moment what my parents had refused to do in 2 years. A man who had technically become family through marriage and then stopped being family through divorce had shown more loyalty than the people who shared my blood. The irony was almost poetic. I used Gregory's money to pay off the remaining medical debt, the credit cards I had maxed out, the personal loans from friends who had insisted they did not need repayment but who deserved it anyway. By mid-February, 2 years after the surgery that had nearly broken me, I was finally completely debt-free. I took Owen out for ice cream to celebrate. He did not understand the significance, but he understood celebration. We sat in our usual booth at the shop on Division Street, and I watched him demolish a sundae while chattering about his upcoming science fair project. "Mama," he said suddenly, his spoon pausing halfway to his mouth, "do you ever miss Grandma and Grandpa?" The question caught me off guard. He rarely mentioned them anymore. I had thought perhaps he had forgotten they existed. "Sometimes I miss who I wanted them to be," I said carefully. "But I don't miss who they actually were." He thought about this, his face serious. "They weren't very nice." "No," I agreed. "They weren't. I like our family better. The one we picked." "Me too, baby. Me too." He went back to his ice cream, the moment passing as quickly as it had come. But it settled something in me. Owen was okay. Better than okay. He was growing up understanding that love was something you earned through action, not something you demanded through biology. March arrived, bringing with it the 2nd anniversary of Owen's diagnosis. I took the day off work, and we spent it doing all of his favorite things. The zoo, the arcade, dinner at the burger place he loved. It was not a sad day. It was a celebration, a recognition of how far we had come. That evening, after Owen went to bed, I sat down and wrote 3 letters. One to Helen, thanking her for being the family I needed. One to Dr. Harrison, telling him how well Owen was doing, how his quick action had saved my son's life. And one to Gregory, thanking him again for his unexpected grace, for showing me that not everyone connected to that family was broken. I never wrote to my parents. Or to Victoria. There was nothing to say to them. No bridge worth rebuilding. No relationship worth salvaging. They had made their choice, and I had made mine. April brought the spring soccer season. Owen's team won their first game, and I screamed myself hoarse cheering from the sidelines. Helen was there, taking photos and video. Several of our co-workers had shown up to support Owen, bringing signs they had made in the office. This was what showing up looked like. This was what family meant. In May, on Owen's 8th birthday, we had another party. Bigger this time. More friends, more laughter, more evidence of a life rebuilt from ashes. Toward the end of the party, as I was cutting cake and passing out plates, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me step out onto the balcony and pick up. "Amelia?" My mother's voice, older and more fragile than I remembered. Please don't hang up. I should have. I had every right to. But curiosity held the phone to my ear. What do you want? I asked, my voice neutral. Your father is sick. Cancer. They're saying it's advanced. I thought you should know. I waited for the grief to come. The guilt. The softening. None of it came. I'm sorry to hear that, I said finally. But I'm not sure why you're calling me. Because he's your father. Because family is supposed to be there for each other. The hypocrisy was so staggering it took my breath away. After everything. After all of it. She still did not see it. Family is supposed to be there for each other, I repeated slowly. Where were you when Owen needed heart surgery? Where were you when I was selling everything I owned to save his life? Where were you at his celebration party? Where were you for any of his birthdays? That's different. No, I interrupted. It's exactly the same. You're asking for something you refused to give. You're demanding loyalty you never showed. And I'm giving you the same answer you gave me. No. Amelia, please. I hope Dad gets better. I genuinely do. But I won't be there. I won't visit. I won't help. You made it very clear 2 years ago that family only matters when it's convenient for you. So I'm returning the favor. Family only matters to me when it's convenient. And this isn't. You'll regret this. When he's gone, you'll regret this. Maybe, I said. But it will be my regret to carry, just like Owen's surgery was my burden to carry alone. Goodbye. I hung up and turned off my phone. Through the sliding glass door, I could see Owen with his friends, laughing at something Helen had said. I could see the remains of cake and ice cream, the pile of gifts, the evidence of a child who was loved and celebrated by people who chose to show up. My mother was right about one thing. I would carry regret. But not the kind she thought. I regretted the years I spent trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I regretted the energy I wasted hoping they would change. I regretted not walking away sooner. But I did not regret this moment. This choice. This final, definitive closing of a door that should have been closed 2 years ago. I went back inside and rejoined the party. In the months that followed, I heard through distant acquaintances that my father's cancer progressed rapidly, that he died in late summer, surrounded by family. Victoria and my mother, presumably. Maybe some cousins. People who had decided that particular moment warranted their presence. I did not attend the funeral. I sent no flowers, no card, no acknowledgement at all. Victoria tried to reach out one last time, a bitter voicemail calling me heartless and cruel, saying I would have to live with myself. She was right. I would have to live with myself. And I had discovered something remarkable. I could live with myself quite well, better than I ever had when I was trying to earn the love of people who weaponized it. My mother tried to visit my apartment 3 months after the funeral. I did not open the door. She stood in the hallway for 10 minutes, knocking and calling my name before finally leaving. She looked older, frailer, broken by losses I had not caused, but had certainly stopped preventing. Victoria stood beside her, her face hard with anger, and something that might have been envy. They had each other, at least. The favored daughter, and the mother who had chosen her. They could comfort each other with stories about my cruelty, my selfishness, my failure to perform the daughter role properly. They could bond over their shared victimhood, never quite examining their own choices. I hoped, distantly and without much conviction, that they might learn something, that they might realize love could not be conditional and arbitrary, that children were not commodities to be invested in based on expected returns, that showing up mattered more than grand gestures. But I did not hold my breath. Owen and I continued building our life. He excelled in school. His heart remained strong. We took vacations within our budget and splurged occasionally on things that mattered. We had family dinners with Helen and her kids. We celebrated holidays with the chosen family, that had proven their loyalty through action, rather than blood. On quiet evenings, when Owen was asleep and the apartment was still, I sometimes thought about the woman I had been 2 years ago. Desperate and drowning, begging for help from people who measured love in spreadsheets. I felt tender toward that woman, sad for her suffering, proud of her survival, but I did not miss her. I did not want to go back to being someone who needed permission to exist, who sought validation from people who hoarded it like currency. I had become someone else, someone harder, maybe, definitely less trusting, but also someone who knew her worth was not determined by other people's willingness to acknowledge it. Someone who understood that the best revenge was not destruction, but indifference. Not caring enough to hate, just living well without them. Victoria lost everything she had built with Gregory. She moved back into our childhood home, dependent on a mother who had proven she only loved her when she was winning. She had traded a partnership for a golden cage, and the bars were closing in. She had spent $50,000 on a honeymoon for a marriage that lasted less than 2 years, and she had nothing to show for it but photos and regrets. Her career in event planning faltered as her divorce became public knowledge in their social circles. The friends who had celebrated her perfect wedding disappeared when perfection cracked. She was left with exactly what she had given me. Nothing. My mother lived with the consequences of valuing appearance over substance, weddings over grandchildren, perception over love. She spent her final years with a daughter who resented her as much as she depended on her, trapped in a house that echoed with the absence of the family she had fractured. No amount of money or status could fill the hole where connection should have been. She died, as she had lived, surrounded by people who performed devotion without feeling it. As for me, I built something better. Owen grew up knowing he was worth more than the sum of what he could provide. He learned that love was action, not words. That showing up mattered. That family was what you made, not what you were given. And when he was older, when he asked about grandparents and aunts, I told him the truth. That some people were capable of love, and some people were not. That walking away from the latter was not cruelty, but survival. I had set out to save my son's life, and I had succeeded. But somewhere along the way, I had also saved my own. I had learned that the best revenge was not making them hurt the way they hurt me. It was refusing to let their rejection define my worth. It was building a life so full of genuine love that their absence did not leave a hole. I had walked through fire and come out forged into something stronger. I had been tested and found myself capable. And when I looked back at the path behind me, at the door I had closed and the people I had left behind, I felt no regret at all. Just relief. Just freedom. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had chosen correctly. Some bridges are meant to burn. Some doors are meant to stay closed. And some families are meant to be built from scratch, one chosen member at a time. I had learned that lesson in the hardest way possible, but I had learned it, and I would never forget.